Evening, everybody. Michelle is here. Before I lay me down to sleep, I wanted to say something that I want to share. I'm just gonna put it out because sometimes I get these inspirational, not inspirational per se, but just information in my little head since I chopped some of my hair off. So before I lay me down to sleep, I just wanted to say this real quick. When you come from a certain background and have certain experiences, it is always a learning block, at least for me. And let me speak for me. You know, I told you I'm an advocate for Black culture, and I am an advocate for Black culture for a reason. Because if it wasn't for Black culture, I think I would not have existed up until this point. I saw I see a lot of things happening outside of the culture, of course, because I like to navigate out of cultures. I love learning about cultures actually, and different type of people and how they operated in their cultures. And I like um, just try, because I love just trying to figure people out. I really do. That's always been a fascination for me. Hopefully, I don't have nothing all over my face, because I'm all showered up, or Let me see. Did I take? Yeah, I took a bath. I soaked in a tub today because my back was feeling kind of achy, and I like it extremely cold sometimes because that helps me sleep. So that's why I'm all bundled up here. But what I've learned, over the course of my life, 58 years, is always pay attention to the ones that are pointing the finger at the problem. Always pay attention to those who who are a walking contradiction. They're the walking contradictions because they offer you a window into a lot of information, and they really help to shape a person. At least they help to shape me because because of the culture I grew up in. There was always this. I was always told, by certain so-called authority of people to watch out for certain type of individuals or certain type of human beings or certain type of activities that human beings participate in. And there was always the ones that were of a religious background, I should say, or I say religion is a form of activity actually when you are so seeped in religion, because that's where a lot of beliefs are created, and a lot of self-righteousness is created in religion, uh, because it seems to be those that bestow a certain title. um, there are always the ones that seem to be so upset and so bothered, and always they have that negativity of judgment that you can feel it. You can feel it by how they're looking at you, how they're talking to you, their actions and behavior. Okay, I told you the role models in my culture were the the, sus- the human beings in that society that were doing this type of activity that everyone will always frown upon, like whether it's prostitution, drug dealing, uh, this and that and the other. But the main things were always drug dealing and prostitution. So many people had so many issues with it, and it's understandable, I guess. Right? Uh, um, this. They call it, it's like the shadowy type of activity. You do it at night. You do it. You do it. You don't do it in the daylight usually. You're kind of creeping around at night. On the down low at night or whatever. it was all type of activity. It involved all type of sexualities, and a lot of people call it depravity. And it's amazing how certain people like to they'll throw certain terms like that around, and who and what cultures they always are pointing that towards, right? When when I lived in Black culture, let's make this very clear. Um, in most cases, it was obvious what was going on. You know, there was nothing secret about what was going on. If somebody is going to be prostituting, you would see them walking the street. If someone's doing drug dealing, you would see the transactions right there in your presence, or whatever activity was going on. So I got exposed to that very, very early. Um, and certain type of other activities as well. I got exposed to that very, very early because, you know, with my particular family, there was, I mean, we were right in the middle of it all, but yet again in our household there was, I mean, it was obvious love was there, but there was a lot of complexities as well. There sometimes there would be a problem with the neighbor, sometimes there'd be a problem here, a problem there, and those things seem to have worked themselves out on their own. Now, was it the resolution that whatever the parties wanted? Not necessarily, but it was an agreement usually back in the day that I remember where, okay, if you don't like what I'm doing, then, and so I think that's how our culture became, in certain places where, you know, hey, people would just mind their own business per se, um, you know, and not be so concerned what everybody else is doing. Um, I don't know where snitching and informing and all that. I don't know where that came from, because like I said, we weren't involved in those type of activities. We weren't necessarily face to face with it. In our home there was peace and love sometimes. There was chaos and destruction sometimes, especially when you have a lot of kids. But like I said, there was always an underlying factor in that environment. And it was love. It was love. Um, so in people that start throwing terms around about people, that's how I know when people lack love, and they lack the love of human beings, you know, and that they have not experienced love. Okay, because if you had experienced love, you would know that drug dealers, prostitution, whatever they're doing, are human beings, people with mental illness, people that, like I said, you know, do this and that and the other. You would know that, hey, those some of them are doing exactly what they want to do. Most of them, from what I can remember growing up, were adults. I don't remember any children being involved in certain things, but I'm sure there was human trafficking back then, but it wasn't as I just don't remember that in black culture. I'm just gonna be honest, but other people can give you the experiences that they had. I'm just telling you what built me up is to be exposed to that kind of stuff early and realize that these people, regardless of whatever they're doing, they're still human beings. All right, they're still people. They're not androids yet. Okay, they're not avatars yet. Okay, they're not AI yet, or possibly are. Those kind of things goes on behind the scenes, uh, out of the view of most people's realities. It's always that behind the scenes that I told you, that hidden hand type of um, existence. And again, I'm glad I was exposed to it early, because now I can recognize who's really the problem and who is not, who is fostering a sort of hatred, who is fostering a sort of manipulation of people. Okay. And you need to have yourself exposed to the so-called depravities of life very early in order to recognize who is the wolf in sheep's clothing. Right? And it's usually those that are pointing at what the problem is. And they rarely ever point the problem at themselves. Rarely. They always they you know they're perfect. A lot of people that come from a religious background, strictly religious background, they think they are just perfect beings. That they are the authority of the world, and everybody needs to be living by their example. Well, if you only knew what was going on behind the scenes of a lot of those so-called uh, perfect people, and they usually, I'm just being honest, they always call themselves Christians. They always talk about their religions and this and that and the other. And I always saw more evil in that than a prostitute. I always saw more evil in that than a drug dealer, because I knew growing up that my parents didn't allow us to hang out with that kind of crowd of people, prostitutes and drug dealers. But yet they always would push us towards these religious and Christian people. Okay. And we all know what usually happened to people behind the scenes when they were dealing with the Catholic scandals with the priest, these other kind of scandals with pastors and so and or these people of authority. Okay, whether they were law enforcement, city council, mayors, um, these so-called authority figures in neighborhoods, crusaders, um, and I know, based on my experiences and whatnot, why I didn't become a drug dealer and why I didn't become a prostitute or those other depravities, that usually is pointed at Black culture, is because I recognized early on, first of all, that's not an interest to me. And I also recognized early on that those are just human beings doing a certain type of activity that I was told for proper reasons that I don't need to be enlisted in that kind of environment. Okay, yes, it exists, but you don't need to be enlisting yourself into it. So as a young girl, I was properly told, you know, what activities to avoid, and from my dad, that's where I learned the biggest lesson. He says you also can't trust those religious people and these people that call themselves Christians as well. So the same type of discernment given to drug dealers, prostitutes, also need to be given to Christian people, so-called Christians and so-called religious people. Okay, because the so-called Christians, based on the story told to my dad, are the ones that stole the property from his family. Okay, so know who is actually causing or creating the so-called evil in the world. Okay, and I can tell you it's not the drug dealers and not the prostitutes. And those are my opinions and theories. Okay, so I want to go ahead and send peace and love to everyone. And I just wish everyone a good night. Take care. And trust me, I'll be back.